Hey everybody. So one of the themes that comes up so often when I present in audiences is that people know they need time for self-care. They crave time for self-care, but we've kind of gotten out of the habit of regular self-care because the boundaries over the last 19, 20 months between work and home have disintegrated. And I gave a presentation today and this topic came up. So many people were talking about it. And somebody had a really interesting point that, when you're working remotely, it's your office or the computer is right there. And so even when you're finished your work day and you're trying to have dinner with your family or watch a TV show, it's so easy to just go over because your mind is wandering and wondering and you want to stay on top of things, to just go over and do one more email or do a little bit more work because that boundary has just sort of disappeared. It's so thin, it's almost invisible. So how do we put those edges back up? That's one. And two, use our time off in a way that really renews us and really restores us. That is the key. Pull up the boundaries to reasonable boundaries. I'm not saying to be, we're going to go from working 14 hours a day to working, 7.5 hours a day with a, 1 hour lunch. We need to pull up the boundaries so that we have clear edges, especially when we're working from home, that when we're working, we're working. And when we cross the threshold into our personal life, to our household life, to our decompression time, that we really shut work off and really turn our decompression time on. And there's a few strategies that can really help with this. First of all, define the boundaries. You can, if you need to, you talk with your team. Everybody has fallen into this habit of not talking about it, but like super extended work hours, constant accessibility. We were trying to prove that we were still working, when the pandemic first hit and when we were in reactionary mode, but it is time to break that habit. We slipped into the undertow. Pull yourselves all back up and say, what are reasonable work hours? When do we want to be available? Do we want to be available if we're global between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., 9 a.m. and 6 or 5? Talk with your teams, talk with the people that you work with most closely. Have the conversations about redefining explicit, reasonable work hours that we can all count on, that we are available to each other, and non-work hours where we really can respect that people are having dinner or going for walks or recharging their lives. Redefine the edges, not just for yourself, but do it collectively. I think this is probably the beginning of, I often talk about time leadership. Time leadership is taking ownership of not just your own time, which is time management. Time leadership is taking charge of your own and recognizing there's also collective time. And good time leadership is practiced by talking about time and talking about availability and accessibility and workloads and sizes of tasks, etc. And the first conversation that I think will get us all moving in the right direction to solid ground moving forward, right? Solid ground, like let's redefine the work day from what expanded during COVID to endless availability. So have a conversation. What's reasonable? Take into account global time zones, take into account the industry that you're in. But I do not think it is okay to not talk about it at this point. It is not healthy. People are so tired and so burnt out, and restoring our energy and restoring our equilibrium starts by restructuring consciously, explicitly, collectively. What are our reasonable work hours? When are we available? And what is after hours? And if those get defined, it is the first step. And once those are defined, we then need to build the skills and the practice to use our non-working hours for renewal. Not for, going on mindless screen time. Not for just cheating and checking our email a few more times and getting some extra work done. Really use it to renew. And that takes practice, it takes consciousness, and it takes sort of building that one brick at a time. So I'm going to talk about how to rebuild that one brick at a time in my next video. So there'll be a part 2 to this about restoring the edges and replenishing our souls. But for now, what I want to encourage everybody to do is start having these conversations. It is a gift to each of you as employees, as contributors. It is a gift to your company. It is a gift to your direct reports. It is a gift to yourself. And it's the way we're going to reshape work. Start by shaping it. When are we working and when are we not working, so that we know that time is safe to go and restore ourselves. Start having those conversations in your small teams and your large teams. If you're a leader, talk about it in your leadership group, in your leadership team, and make sure that this is the first thing everybody's talking about. It will keep your employees in sync as well as restored and there for the long haul.